Welcome, everyone. We are very excited in this next segment to be showing a very special condensed version of a documentary by Anthony Basil Rodriguez. This is from his time at Standing Rock, documenting the process of Native peoples and many people from around the world gathering to protest the Dakota Access Pipeline. Anthony is an independent filmmaker, world traveler, ethnobotanist, and storyteller. This work continues to bring Anthony around the world in pursuit of research and documentation of rare plants, disparate peoples, and the global flux of, the flux of global society. All right, we're so looking forward to seeing this segment. Thank you.
For the past 6 years, I've been collecting my own spring water. At the end of every month, a friend and I drive about an hour away to a local spring, and it has not only become a routine, it has become a ritual. And it's sad because the number of freshwater springs in our area is declining. So when I heard about what was happening at Standing Rock, I felt a call to play a role in forwarding the cause. So I started off by attending a demonstration in New York City, where I heard the voices and stories of people already rooted in this movement.
This is our drinking water! Equality! This is equality!
This is for us all!
This is for us all!
We stand with Standing Rock!
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 A few days later, I headed to the Bronx, my home city, where a caravan was North Dakota bound. Through my good friend Carlos, I was able to connect and catch a ride to Standing Rock. And for the next 3 days, it was a group of 16 people on a bus and the open road, which happened to be an incredible bonding experience. When you first enter the camp, you feel a strong sense of community and cooperation, which seemed to have an instant effect on our group. As you looked around, you saw where help was needed, and all hands were on deck. As I got settled, I ventured off to become acquainted with the camp. One day, during a morning water prayer by the river, I met a California Pit River native man by the name of Golden Feather.
And it's just in my heart, to come and pray out here and to be with everybody. And it's, it's really good. It's a good time, to stand up for these rights for Mother Earth. And so when I seen it too, as a viewer on Facebook, it just made me upset. I couldn't believe, that these tragedies are still happening, in this day and age, that they wouldn't, acknowledge, that this is sacred lands. These are the great plains, of many great chiefs. And so I felt the spirit, I felt the calling, I had to be out here, I had to come. And I'm glad I made it, and I'm glad you guys are out here filming and doing what you're doing, to get the real word out there, It's a peaceful protest. Ever since I got here, I had much hate in my heart, but ever since I got here, I just been burning sage, and people give me medicine, the sage and tobacco. I got it in my medicine bag. And it's all about prayer, it's all about love and unity. And like I said before I got here, I had much anger, but I let that all go. Today is a new day. I feel blessed to be out here, to be able to pray and to be able to share these medicines and, get back on this walk of life. It's a sacred path.
I also had the opportunity to speak with a man who worked in oil fields for many years.
I'm over 60, and I should have been probably more involved in things like this than, I made a lot of money in the oil field, a lot of money. And I don't work there right now. We have a little disagreement, but
Speaking with Arnie deepened the scope of perspectives involved in this movement.
we don't leave oil on the ground. We go get it. But if we make a mistake, there should be penalties to pay. People go to prison, and if you violate, we have to do it safe. So we're not getting rid of the Iron Horse, and I don't think we're going to get rid of oil either right now. That's for another guy's fight. But right now, if you're going to put a pipeline in, it needs to be safe, it needs to be in the right spot, and everybody needs to be included in the conversation, because you just got us pissed off right now. And maybe it's stuff in the past, but it's like, maybe we should have dealt with it, but it's like, man, it kind of come to a head right now. So you're not just talking about one pipeline today. You're just talking about people somehow coming to an agreement where we feel that my heart was listened to. I listened to your heart. And I hope in his heart it's not just like, I want to make as much money the cheapest way I can. I don't care about people, because if that's their heart, that's evil.
And Maria, a woman who came on the same caravan a few trips back and has been at Standing Rock ever since, dedicating her time holding orientations for newcomers to educate them how to walk through the camp in respect of indigenous ways and ceremonies.
But I am welcome to be here. How do I come here and leave all of that trauma, leave all of that hate and anger behind, so I can make sure that I'm not becoming more of a risk versus being a person of support? And so how do I come and be here in solidarity? How do I come and be here as an ally? How do I come correct to a place that is not mine? We need to relearn how to love each other. And I think I'm getting sad by saying that, because people are having such a hard time doing that. But folks are trying really, really hard to make sure that this is a place that's really open to doing that. But it's also a place to do it with respect and to know your place and contribution. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
That's perfect.
I feel like I just babbled for 5 minutes.
No, that was perfect. You didn't even have to say anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to cut it out.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was so beautiful. Because it was from your heart. It was so amazing, Maria. No, because you just spoke from your heart. It was not because you've been here. You just spoke from your experience. Mm-hmm. You spoke from your life. You didn't have to think. That's the problem. We think too fucking much. We just think we're trying to say the politically right thing to get the message in the right way to the right person. But we don't know. We don't know how the other person receives. But we do know, when we give our hearts, they can either take it or they don't. And it's okay, because you're just speaking your truth. So, thank you beyond all, for sharing, because it was really, really beautiful.
So, time is coming to an end here, my time at Standing Rock, and my experience here has been pretty life-changing and pretty eye-opening. Right now I'm in the fields, and we are on ancient lands. The indigenous people of the Americas walk these lands for thousands of years and have thousands of years of wisdom, and they do everything in a sacred act, and I've come here and really had the opportunity to be a part of that. And I'm very thankful and grateful to be alive during this time of resistance, to live on a better planet, against dirty oil, against just savaging our planet. And this is the change that is being made for future generations. The time is now where, people are starting to make these moves to make a difference. And this is just a sign of change that's coming. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. Let's just do good. Now as I ride home into the sunset, with the experiences I had at Ocheti Sakoan camp fresh in my mind, I ponder about the prophecies coming to pass, and in my heart the voices and stories of a great people. And despite the concerted efforts to erode their legacies, through songs, prayers, and oral storytelling, they stand strong in protecting the sacred and holding their way of life. Their prophecies speak of a generation that will bring forth a great change, where the world will be healed and made whole again by all nations working together. So the time is now to defend the sacred and redefine what we consider sacred. In growing empathy and compassion for all beings, whether birds, trees, or fellow humans, we make way for a new world so that future generations can thrive on a planet where the air is clean, ground is fertile, and the water is fresh. Because life is sacred, and water is life. Mini Wachoni.
So beautiful to see this heart and soul pouring out of people in such incredible pressure, and to see people really standing up and protecting the land that they come from and showing up to be allies and help others protect the land that they come from. It's very, very incredible. Thank you. So for our next segment, we are so excited to bring a potent panel based around regenerative people practice. We will be welcoming in Erin Young, Robin Clayfield, Matiu Huki, and Robina Mccurdy. They will be speaking to accelerating a regenerative human ecology. So, hold on one moment. Erin Young uses nature principles to activate women and groups with balance, creativity, and collaboration as a coach and consultant. Hi, Erin. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi.
Let's see. Robina Mccurdy is a permaculture educator, designer, community development facilitator, and nature connection guide of 40 years experience. Thank you so much for being here, Robina.
Thank you. Welcome.
Matiu Huki. Matiu has over 20 years experience as a Maori language and performance teacher. He is an engaging facilitator, dynamic international musician, playwright, storyteller, and a leader amongst his own communities. Matiu, thank you for being with us as well, and thank you so much for sharing the opening prayer yesterday to welcome everybody in, present and past ancestors and all species. That was a very powerful way to start this whole symposium. So thank you all for being here. And just to let everyone know, we are working through some tech glitches with Robin Clayfield. And so we will start the conversation out with these three amazing humans, and we will bring Robin in as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Okay, so hi everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. And first and foremost, I'd like to invite us to take a breath together. Just one nice grounding breath. If you've been watching this weekend, as you've been watching with this weekend, you've been interfacing with a device. Hopefully you've been getting some time in fresh air and in the outdoor realms. And this is intended to be a refreshing, grounding conversation and exploration about how we connect in as adaptive and balanced humans in this world at the current moment. I'd like to invite each of us to acknowledge where we're calling from and the country and the region where it is, particularly in recognition of the traditional peoples of that place. I'll start by saying that I'm calling in from Gubbi Gubbi country in Australia, which is otherwise known as the Sunshine Coast in southeast Queensland. How about you, Robina?
I'm calling in from Golden Bay or Mohua in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the top of the South Island, which is guardianed by Te Ati Awa Ngāti Rāroa Ngāti Tama of our Indigenous peoples original. Yeah.
And Matiu, how about you?
Kia ora. I'm calling in from Te Taipōtini in Mawhira. I'm on the west coast of the South Island of Aotearoa. This is where I'm touring at the moment. And this is the place where our pounamu comes from, our sacred greenstone. And it's known for its beautiful bush and its mosquitoes.
Thank you. And when Robin joins us, she will be joining us from Jinnabara country, which is not too far away from where I am in southeast Queensland, Australia. Okay, so for this conversation, we're exploring how we cultivate and design ourselves and each other as adaptive and balanced humans in the world we're in. We've known that the world's been changing for quite a while now. I mean, change is constant. We know that. It's changing more rapidly. And this year we've seen a even more rapid acceleration of change happening. Change that has made us pause and stop particularly, but also change that has really stirred up the pot in a really interesting and constructive ways, as well as perhaps destructive ways. So we're going to be exploring how we know how to keep ourselves in check in these times and what's possible, what's available to seed into our personal lives, into our close kin relationships, and into our broader communities. So the question to explore now is, maybe we can start with you, Matiu. What helps you to stay adaptive, healthy, and balanced in life in general, but also particularly this year, as we've had quite a distinctive change happen for all of us around the world?
Kia ora. So I'd say in life in general, what works for me is doing things that I love and being really clear about doing things that I love. This year in particular, I had a lot more time on my hands than usual, and I made sure that I used that to work on some really important personal daily practices that I hadn't given priority to in the past. And apart from meditation and breath work, the main one that's really supported me is to get outside every morning and put my feet on the earth, go through some activating qigong-like practices, and then to haka. So haka is something I've been teaching for a long time and participated in, but I was actually inspired by someone who had come to one of my workshops, and he said that he'd been doing haka every day for 40 days and he'd felt this big shift. So I've embraced that as a tool to ground, but also I've been processing a lot of frustration and fear and a lot of things in my body this year have been really present and knocking me around emotionally. So haka has been used by myself as a tool every morning, but sometimes throughout the day, if I feel things building up, I will actually go out onto the land. Or if I'm not on the land and I'm backstage somewhere and I'm needing to do it there, I'll do a silent haka so I don't freak out all the people in the space. So haka, I'd say, has been my main saving grace this year, and it's something I've been encouraging people to use as a tool for years through my haka workshops, but only this year I've fully embraced it myself and walking my own talk. So I'd say that's really worked for me.
Wow, thank you. And I've seen you from the periphery, I've seen you sharing haka workshops in local festivals in our region with men in particular, and the energy and power that would come from that space just felt so real, so tangible, in a collective setting. And it's really powerful to hear how it's landing for you in your daily life.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think you've witnessed that festival action with the men in the front, but there were actually heaps of women behind them as well. So I only teach it to men and women at the same time. Okay. And the men were in the front so that they could get into their protective, caring, nurturing energy. So I got to work on that so that the women can be seen as well, because it did get eclipsed.
Powerful. Okay, thank you. And Robina, how about you? How do you stay adaptive, healthy, and balanced in life, and particularly this year?
Thanks for that very pertinent question, Erin. So I want to just share that I live in a community, rural, in Golden Bay called Tui. We have 40 people, including kids there, and I have a little round, small earth house in the forest, which I walk up the track to, cross the creek, and go home to. It's on solar. And that's always a restorative space. It's always a grounding and nurturing space. And sometimes I've just very often taken that route for granted. But now during the so-called lockdown, we call it Rahui here, which is more like a sacred space, a pause for restoration and for rejuvenation of nature and so on. In that time, I've chosen spots, mindfulness spots on the route that I will stop and observe and breathe and ground. And I'm doing that every day. I've just opened so much more the powers of my observation and appreciation. So that's one thing. And in living in community, I've been getting frustrated what we don't have, how we're not attaining, my vision and goals, what we're not achieving. I've shifted that right around. And again, with the appreciation of what we are doing and the uniqueness and the specialness of each individual, and giving to those people from my heart, and much less from my judgment. And that's really helped as well. Just a couple more things. Gardening with the seasons. Observing, letting nature do even more, like the flowers, even more flowers, and even more provision for the insects, and less for the food for Mimi. That's been another little practice. And I think mentoring young people is I have to either be with kids or with young people who are really up for change in a very dedicated way. I need to have that inflow of that younger generation, both for energetic cycling, but also for as a reminder, as a groundedness, as a commitment to, this is why I'm doing my work. This is who I'm doing it for. If I can even stretch my mind to dare to think 7 generations, holding that huge space of the future back into the past, and give thanks to my forebears and my mentors. I just feel so humble in a very deeply grounded way through these times of this year. Thank you, Erin.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robina. It's really powerful to feel you situate yourself inside of that 7-generational context by connecting with the multi-generations in the here and now. And that's an important way to be situated. And I'll share from me how I've been holding myself in health and adaptiveness and balance in life in general, and particularly this year. I'll speak to particularly this year because it amplifies, I guess, a design of sorts, or in how my life is set up. I live in a forest in a regional area, about an hour and a half from a major city. And I've been so grateful to be able to live in this forest. And in general, it's meaningful to me that I do live in proximity to a city where I can connect in with people, culture, resources that aren't available to me here. And I have such gratitude that I live on the peripherals where I have access to clean air and water and clean land and wildlife abundantly. And so, even more so this year, I have been really sitting in my earth meditations and really being in the space of observing as well, and really paying attention, just letting life be around me without me doing anything in particular. That's been a really powerful, important grounding tool. And more and more in my life, I'm connecting in with the wheel and the cycle of the seasons, not just the seasons that the sun generates for us in a year, and very much so that, but also the seasons of the moon and the seasons of my body and the seasons of community around me and the seasons of the bigger collective shifts and changes that are happening. So to be observing through the lens of cycle and seasons has really helped me to digest what's happening in Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere, as well as in New Zealand. We have been through the winter solstice about 3 months ago, and we've just come through spring equinox. And so our solar cycle, our new year, just started 3 months ago. So we're on the up, we're rising up out of that. And it's been a process for me to reorientate my life around that. It's can feel challenging when the juggernaut of the collective is saying, New Year starts on the 1st of January. And, in terms of how nature operates, in this place where we reside, nature starts its new cycle. There's always exceptions, but nature starts its new cycle around the winter time. And as the spring will rise up above the soil, the new things that are growing up. So I've allowed that to be part of my life, and that's been really healthy for me. And it's given me a sense of orientation. I know where I'm sitting inside of the cycle, and that ripples out through my life in a lot of ways. Another thing that's really supported and helped me to be in balance is to live a practice of ground centering in a mantra, which or a state of being, which is that I choose unconditional love and unconditional trust. And I feel that in my body, and I feel it all around me. And the amount of disarming that has provided me has been incredible. It has helped me to realize in my life practice that I've lived with low-level chronic anxiety that I had no idea about. And by coming back to unconditional love and unconditional trust for myself, for the people around me in my life, for the whole thing that's going on this planet, I'm able to be in a more centered place and meet what's happening in a more centered way. So that's been a really powerful thing for me. Okay, so acknowledging that Robin Clayfield still isn't with us, and we're going to keep moving on through our conversation, and we hope that we can welcome her into this space and contribute some of her insights and experiences into this. Let's move on to exploring and understanding what is it that you see sifting to the surface at this time as primary importance to us humans. Given that Matiu in particular, you've come from perhaps a more direct Indigenous wisdom space, and all of us are familiar and aware with perennial or evergreen practices that hold us in our humanity. Firstly, what is rising to the surface that we're needing to be more mindful of at this time, not only individually but collectively? So let's start with Robina. How about you?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So seems to be in our country and in my world, this COVID phenomena kind of like dovetails into the floods and the earthquakes and the, tsunamis, those kinds of natural catastrophe events where people get rocked, where people crack, where the baseline of what we think is our security, just the bottom falls out of it. And so people are really raw, vulnerable, afraid, but being like, a little bit too deeply inquiring. It's time to have those courageous conversations. It's essential to have those courageous conversations. And I have them. I have them, often a gentle opening, a gentle inquiry. The how are you question doesn't usually respond, oh, okay, thanks, in these times. So just a gentle opening, seeing if there's a willingness to share. And then often people are floundering, what tools do I use? Now my pseudo security is not my real security. I can see that. What is my security? And this kind of quest, this thirst for belongingness. So what is belongingness? It's belongingness into a whānau or an extended family, blood or not. In Māori language, it's whanongatanga. And so being part of a human kin, and that means the courage to build relationships with people that might have been just casual, work colleagues, whatever, go deeper. And then the other relationship is with our earth and our Papatono, Kuranginui, the Sky Father, the earth, everything in between. That we are as caretakers, we are as intermediaries. That relationship, that breathing from our earth up through our bodies, breathing from the sky down through our crown chakra, through our heads to the earth. We ourselves cycling this energy, we ourselves as dedicating our service for healing of the earth as she heals us. Talking that, living that, walking that, however little, on a tiny little corner of land in the street where there's some grass and a few scraggly weeds, just attuning to that, giving thanks to that, offering a healing to that. And the other thing is having a special place. And even if one's in a city, if I'm in a city, I look for where's a quiet, special little place I can just breathe, still grounds, come back to myself. Having those places and searching for them and being committed to do that practice. Thank you.
Robina, I'd like to inquire into the first point you shared about courageous conversations, and then we'll hear from Matiu about what he sees bubbling up. What have you found helps people to receive what is coming through all parties to receive what's coming through in the courageous conversations, as well as to speak what needs to be spoken?
So it's a genuine caring, a genuine inquiring curiosity of the state of being of the other person, of the experiences. Through that, there's a sort of still place that happens, an intimate place, when there's this active listening from another and even repeating back in a looping sort of way what the other has said. It's saying, yeah, I've got time, I'll make time. Oh, I'm shifting something in my diary. This is important to be with this person. And let the other, almost in the energetics of the field, guide the space. because I'll just say here and now for me, in my reality, in my experience, it's not just me and you. There is this third being, which is, or multiple beings. It's this multidimensional space that if we're together in a truly caring and presence way, then we are blessed as well by the spiritual world, and we are held, and we can even visualize that or intend it, even say it inside and ask on like a prayer. We are held by that and helped by that, and holding hands to help each other through these really rocky times. Yeah.
Thank you. Matiu, what do you see as sifting to the surface of priority for us in our human walk on the planet right now?
Kia ora. For me, some of the things that I've seen come up they've always been there for me, but I may have been taking them for granted up until this year in particular. And one of them would be food sovereignty. You know, I've always been around people who are into permaculture and gardening, but I've never quite had that drive to go into it until this year. It's like all of a sudden I've got this huge urgency to build soil and to find places to grow food. So that's kicked in well and truly this year. Another one is gathering. I've always appreciated gathering, but I feel it's important more than ever together. I see there's nothing social about social distancing, so I'm taking every opportunity I can to bring people together, to share bacteria with each other, to sing, to share food, to share stories. So gathering is, especially when it's been forbidden, it just makes it even more important and sacred to be able to gather whenever we can. Another one that's come up for me is processing trauma. I feel like it's so important for us in this moment, as we're moving clearly into new chapters, to leave behind anything that's not serving us. So finding ways to process trauma, to figure out what it is that's holding us back, that we've been carrying. And a lot of us don't know what we've been carrying. So doing deep inquiry, being really authentic about our behaviors and our patterns, and finding ways to cleanse and to clear and to shake it off and to purge it out. So many different modalities out there. So I'm really seeing for myself and a lot of people around me, there's a deeper authenticity about what's going on. And funnily enough, I think getting the masks off, and I'm not talking about those flimsy little fabric things that we've been forced to wear in some places, but just dropping the masks to be completely transparent and authentic. I think it's so crucial to finally let people see who we truly are. And I know that I've worn masks in the past so that I could be liked and accepted and loved and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just embracing the vulnerability of taking my masks off. And I find that I'm really finding my tribe and my people around me now, because they know who they're dealing with, and they might really resonate with who they're truly seeing me as. So I think that's really important. And finally, for me, just diving deeper and deeper into ancestral knowledge. I have comfort in the Māori culture, but where there's so much more wisdom there for me. There's wisdom in the stars that I want to learn about. There's wisdom in the moon and the maramataka and all these different ancient wisdoms that are there that have helped all of our ancestors through times of struggle, through times of not just, because a lot of people struggle to find an elder to sit with, an old person to sit with, to get those stories from. So just getting creative on how we find our ancient wisdom to support us moving forward. Those are some things coming to the surface for me.
Thank you. I think something that the need that I feel sifting to the surface, in addition to so much of what you've both shared, is the need of truth telling in these times. A really big characterizing factor of 2020 so far has also been, in addition to COVID, has been the Black Lives Matter uprising and the ripple effect that that's caused globally. And here in Australia, it's such critical need that the truth telling around that Black Lives Matter, and that we need to actively and proactively advocate and activate around that, is so timely. It's essential. In these existentially challenging times where we have the climate crisis, which is still very much there. It's still very much, lingering just on the peripheral of our vision. We need to be accessing wisdom that knows how to live on land for a long time. And in this country of Australia, there's been such incredible damage created by people who haven't had the capacity to listen and haven't had the capacity to open up to that wisdom. And so it's of critical importance that we create the space to speak what needs to be spoken, like you were saying, Robina. And that the people around the world who have gone through incredible trauma and incredible disturbance to their perennial long-living cultures get to speak that and speak about what their experience has been as a portal and as an experience, a critical experience that leads us to being together as one mob, as they would say here in Australia. There's such a deep graciousness in Aboriginal Australia that I'm sure ripples around the world, where they're willing to say, you know what, a lot of really terrible stuff's happened, and if you're able to come and meet us in our circle and sit with us around the fire, let's go forward together. And that grace is just so touching. And it needs to be accessed through truth-telling. And more this is happening. And it's so inspiring and so important. So this is not only around this theme, but truth-telling in so many themes around how our governments are designed in ways that don't necessarily empower us at the grassroots level to have significant action, or how we think we don't have the capacity and power. We as activists in our community, even by listening to these conversations and sharing in these ideas, we have the awareness to be able to activate and let people know we have the power to organize locally. And we've been hearing that this weekend through this symposium, that there is so much need to activate locally, and in COVID has certainly made us connect in on a local level. So I think there's a truth telling that's already had to happen naturally, and it needs to continue to happen so that we can keep finding this dynamic balance in how we do what we're doing, where we're able to respond to change much more effectively. So it'll be really interesting to see how the next 12 months goes in terms of this. I think a lot more is going to be coming up. So, yeah, that's my little piece for that. Again, I want to acknowledge Robin's voice here, and she obviously hasn't been able to make it back in with us. So we'll continue on in our conversation. Robina and Matiu, is there anything that you want to share in relation to what we've just spoken? I'm just wanting to check in if there's anything sitting there under the surface that feels relevant right now.
I want to acknowledge what you said about the role of Indigenous peoples around the world. If the voice can be at all internationally heard rather than damped down, rather than not have a channel, those who are getting heard, who are getting seen, I would say, like big elephant ears, open my ears, open our ears to hear every word, to hear the nuance of every sound, to hear the language that's been filtered in through the English, and being humble and just being willing to take the lead from those peoples who overall, through rage, through tremendous grief of lost land and lost peoples and lost history, are still willing to partner. And I can't stress that highly enough. I know that in this country, Te Reo, the Māori language, has had such a resurgence with people in every corner of this country, rural, urban, big cities, taking language classes all over the place. Both Māori people trying to reclaim the language that they never learned, and Pākehā, the English people, trying to learn it so that we can actually have a shift in our thinking, because speaking that language is a different mindset, a different spiritual connection, a different way of relating to our planet and our peoples. Yeah, so I think I want to say anything else to the next question and just leave that little piece there, pulling up from what you said, Erin, and what Matiu said.
Thank you so much, Robina. So we've been working on our back end to see how we can bring Robin into the conversation. And we're gonna test out an audio piece to see if you can hear her now. I've got her on the phone with me, and she may only be able to pour in through audio, but Robin, can you chime in and let's see if everybody can hear each other?
Yeah, thanks, Genevieve. Hello, everyone. So sorry that there's been tech problems. Not sure how that happened, but I'm delighted that I can still at least be here and say hello and share for a little bit, if the audio will work for me. How is that? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, it works great.
Wonderful. All right, Robin, I'm so grateful that we're able to have your presence in this space to add to this conversation. And Erin, maybe as kind of the facilitator of the conversation or having been present, could you maybe bring Robin into the context of the conversation?
Sure. Robin, you have a gist of what we've been talking about in terms of the questions I've been sharing. And I think this might help you to come into the conversation by bringing your attention, and I invite you to share, what is it that helps you to stay adaptive, healthy, and balanced in your life in general, and particularly this year, and even in this moment in responding to tech challenges? I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Yeah, I needed to stay really focused, and I've had to be adaptive in many, many ways. I was on the edge of tears there because I so wanted to be with you and join you. So part of that was remembering to breathe, take a moment, trusting that if it's meant to be, that I'll be there with you all. I have that in my life in general. I find that I need to quite regularly take time in nature, pause for a moment, and reflect on what needs to be the next step forward. Since the COVID time, I've been gardening a lot. I've gone back to the garden really after it becoming more of a hobby while I focus on my broader work in the world, and gardening hand soil and being really, really connected to the cycles and patterns of nature, the patterns of just living really when we're focused on providing our own food and resources and things, saving the seeds and growing them and being so connected to that. I'm rejoicing in that, and I know it's helping me stay really present to myself and to the challenges of the world as well. One of the things that I did as a young person in, I guess, the late 70s, early 80s, when I felt like I didn't really fit in the world with my sense of self and politics and environment and things, I chose to plant myself in a fertile place healthy soil, so to speak, in amongst an area where there was lots of people working for change and doing good things for the world, and eventually in the mid-80s choosing to live in an eco-village. And so I see that, like, when we create guilds in permaculture of planting plants together that support each other, to plant myself in an eco-village, it feels like I'm surrounded myself with good people, and we're able to, you know, now elder, younger people as they're coming through, and all work together like a healthy guild and a healthy ecosystem. And I guess also being in service, being a director of our co-op at the moment, and working with rites of passage work with teenage boys, with the mums. That kind of work helps me stay really healthy and balanced in my whole psychology, and helps me, you know, respond to the world and problems out there. And of course, exercising, good healthy food, lots of greens, that kind of stuff. Yeah, thanks, Erin.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Okay, so let's segue into this piece around, you know, many of us listening and many of us on this call now are familiar with the tools of permaculture, for example, that has been spoken about a lot in this symposium, and not everyone knows what that means or knows what it means technically. And we have to acknowledge and recognize that the tools of living in permanent culture have been active on this planet for a long, long time, many, many generations before permaculture came along, by people who've lived in place and connected and related to place for many generations. So as we bring our focus to what wisdom and tools we do have available to address what is happening in the world now and what the needs are that are coming through for the world right now, the question is, what do you see as some of the most important tools for us to be leaning into collectively in society, as well as on the smaller scale in our local areas? And also, how do you see those tools need to adapt to meet the times that we're in? How are those practices and ways and knowings of how to be healthy humans with healthy land, healthy in place, how do they need to shift to meet what's happening now? Let's go to Matiu and see what you have to share.
Kia ora, Erin. And it's lovely to have you in here. Robin, thanks for joining us. We missed you. For me, a big part of what I do in my life is I like to bring people together, and I like to share my music, or I like to share my haka workshops. And I've been doing that globally for the last few years, a lot around Australia, and I was starting to branch out into America and Europe over the last couple of years as well. And that felt really important to spread it wide. And then I was inspired by hearing that our brother Charlie McGee from the Formidable Vegetable Sound System, who sings all about permaculture, had chosen not to fly overseas anymore. And he was just doing it locally. And at first I was like, man, that feels really extreme and restricting. And then all of a sudden I'm not allowed to leave the country. Well, I can, but it's just a bit trickier. So I was like, Whew. So I started touring Aotearoa, and I adapted what I was doing, things that I felt are really important for us together, and I adapted it to a touring Aotearoa doing house concerts. And these house concerts, we'd get together and we'd have a potluck meal where we'd share food with people that knew each other, and strangers were coming in, and we were creating community. And then we would sing and we would dance. And then I'd do my workshops as well in communities, in little towns that don't always get people cruising into them. And for me, it's really worked because I've been able to do things that I love, and I've been able to do it with a lot more ease. It's so much easier touring this country than dragging my gears around Europe on planes and dealing with airport security and all of that business. So that's been my adaptation, and it's something that I've really embraced, and I'm looking forward to basically touring this country, going home, working on my land, and then doing the same route and touring this country over and over. And I could just see that I could be happy doing that for the rest of my life. I would love to get back to Australia in particular, and eventually some parts of the world, but it's really helped me realize how important it is to not look out so much, but to bring things closer to home and to create really strong, enduring relationships that I can continually go back and visit here in this beautiful land. So that's been something that's really worked out for me this year, by having to adapt, not just because I want to do what I love, but I'm also doing this so I can create some income to support myself and my family as well. Kia ora.
And Matiu, in terms of the land where you are, from what I know, people in your country have really rallied together strongly, particularly during COVID time, in a way that is very specific to your culture. Are you able to share with us anything about that, of what you've seen have held the people of Aotearoa to navigate through a challenging year that draws on the cultural practice and wisdom that's already there?
That's a great question, because I've been living in two different worlds. I know that our government talks about the team of 5 million, the team of 5 million coming together and following that narrative. But I've got a lot of my strength from people who are not following the mainstream narrative, people who are choosing to take care of their own immune systems and trusting in the fact that they can create health and well-being for themselves with their food and with their practices and by looking after their immune systems, as opposed to putting all of their hope in a vaccine, which I personally do not have any interest in putting into my body or my family's body. So there's sort of been two conflicting things that have been going on in this country in particular, and I know that a lot of the world looks at us as this great success story for following the mainstream narrative and locking down and separating, hand sanitizing and all of that business. But I've actually got a lot of my strength and my my hope and my support from people who are actually on this other side over here, where they're looking at growing their own food and not relying on the system, and potentially detaching from the system quite drastically in order to take care of themselves and their families.
Okay.
It's something I want to do.
Okay, thank you. Robin, how about you? What perennial wisdom and tools do you see as particularly relevant to right now that you're aware of, and how are they adapting?
Yeah, I've given this a bit of thought too, particularly in recent times, but not just the COVID stirring up everything here. We've also had massive fires here in Australia last year as well. So that's kind of high on our agenda too. And going back to the garden really deeply as a survival skill has been such a refreshing thing for me. I've always gardened, yet to garden for our survival and to feed, for the sick people feels so important. So those perennial pieces of wisdom and skills, like basic survival skills, how to make string and rope and weave baskets. I remember once someone saying to me that there's a Native American saying that the one who makes string is the one who survives. And I've been weaving again and teaching other younger women how to weave. And so, the seed saving from the garden, how to just really grow the plants, having herb and plant law, green medicine, animal husbandry, those really basic kind of skills that I think in our culture today, we've often forgotten those. Seeing Green Harvest, our Australia's organic mail order supply business, it's a permaculture business started by St Francis Michael's up here near Mullaney at Crystal Waters, and that they sold out of virtually everything in the COVID times. Obviously, you might have talked about this already, but people just started gardening. People know that that is a core skill. And it's not just planting one crop of seedlings. You know, seedlings sold out all around the country just about, but it's way more than just putting a little plant in the ground and hoping it grows some food. So, you know, permaculture obviously helps us with that. I'm using biodynamics again and stirring up the preps that help the vitality of the soil. But there's also, you know, apart from more tribal and community living and being in villages or following transition towns and localization strategies and things like that, there's also like our social skills that really help make all of those kind of things work. Most of us live in community. We live in villages or towns or in cities, even in big high-rise buildings. It's still a community, the people that see each other. So, you know, my sense of sitting in circle round a fire, as we have always done as humans, looking at how we have shared visions, common values, and able to work together on tasks that support each other in these times. Developing water security strategies, fire safety plans and strategies. And then also, I guess, conflict resolution strategies, so that we're more able, on that social sense, to be a healthy community and go forward with our work. And the other thing I would bring in there as a perennial wisdom is reminding us about ceremony and celebration. For me, it's always helps me remember who I am and that I'm connected to the land and the earth and all of the people around me. So to meet and gather in seasonal ceremonies, rites of passage kind of ceremonies, and to celebrate our successes and our love and joy of being together as a people.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, potent place to take it.
Is, can I throw one more thing in there?
Sure.
The use of nonviolent communication, you know, processes and strategies like that, they're a new wisdom really in terms of the age of our world. But if we bring those strategies forward and, you know, creative group processes and things like that. Yeah, thank you. Interested to hear what
Yeah, thank you, Robin, which you've pioneered so well in your work. Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left of our call. Let's hear from you, Robina. What particularly social wisdom and tools that have been perhaps practiced for a long time or that are coming up as new patterns do you see particularly relevant to now?
Yep. So first of all, Robin's covered the breadth of it. Matu's covered the depth of it. And I want to bring together a synthesis. What Matu said is, you know, I often journey out beyond my bioregion and, you know, do my work there, but I've brought my work right home. And in the Nelson Tasman region, where I live in the broader context, I'm now doing local food resilience workshops here, which bring together the importance of like seed saving, gardening, that whole cycles of nature thing, what people come in with often, and the organizational development. How does an organization that is just a community-based organization, maybe a food bank or maybe a organization which is serving in some other specific way, transform or add into itself food sovereignty? And then partner that and be the centralized kind of hub for that with people who are doing stuff on the ground. So that requires facilitation skills, it requires communication skills, conflict resolution skills, at the same time as interfacing something which is really practical for our survival. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm partway through writing a manual for facilitators on that. The other thing that seems to come really strong parallel to that is staying home and being familiar with your bioregion and bridging gaps with a language and concepts and practical. Like, I have done what I've never done before. I've just done this big permaculture consultancy for a dairy farm, which is going to be a model on the ground for environmental restoration in our area and hopefully in our country, where the greenies meet the conventional farmers in the middle. So I feel like the skills to do that and really embrace each other's worlds and learn from each other through, and this particularly through the methodology of permaculture, that's something that's a gift that we can do as we stay home and embrace the polarities of the place we live. We change agents in that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a minute or two to go, and I'd like to share a really important tool to embrace as we move forward in these times is to distribute leadership. There are more and more simple yet really powerful methodologies of how in our groups and organizations we can make change happen in our local area, in our regional area, in our national area, and globally. And we need to look at how we distribute power and organize how we make decisions inside of our groups as we go about doing that. And it's becoming more and more accessible. And there's a lot of, stacking on top of processing a lot of trauma that we have around these making decisions and power dynamics. We need to claim the power we have as individuals and show up as sovereign beings, speak the truth, and be solutionaries as we move forward. And when we can turn up with respect for ourselves and for each other and use so much of what we've spoken about in the session just now, we can really be real in the real time with what needs to be met within myself and within the other, within us as a collective in this space. And how do we creatively, adaptively, and constructively move toward that? And permaculture as a package has, and as approach, has so many solutions inside of that, and there's so many beyond that. And I'm going to bring it back to the circle. Someone mentioned it earlier. Sitting in circle is an age-old human practice that people all around the world have always practiced, sitting in circle and sharing. And it's not just to be nice to each other, it's actually got a very strong function of organizing who's got the opportunity to speak and holding the power in a really healthy way, so we all get heard and we all listen and we all show up in a deep listening sense. So if there's one thing you can take with you is to really sit in circle with your people. And we can do that online in these sort of ways. We've got a virtual digital circle going on right now, and we can do it in person as well. Even socially distant circles work. So yeah, what a rich pot we've all thrown together here. And of course, the people in your place and who have lived in your place for a long time have a lot of wisdom of how to exist there in a healthy way amongst in the social dynamic as well as the physical, all of the dynamics coming together. So any last contributions before Genevieve pops in to wrap us up? Robin, did you have anything else you wanted to throw into the pot?
Yeah, just some reflections on kind of moving forward and the common sense things that we can do. And really strong one for me is about sharing what we know and what we've learned. And I encourage everybody to do that. It's like our third ethic of fair share in permaculture. And also to advocate for right livelihood, to work where it really counts and where it makes a difference in the world at things that are ethical and environmental and really good, social outcomes and things like that. If we work at what we love and what makes a difference, then we're not contributing to the problem, we're contributing to the solution. So just a call for people to put their money and their time where our ethics are. So if our world, if we all did that, imagine what our world would be like. So that's my vision for the world, all of us giving much love and care to our planet and to each other and to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much to you, Matiu, to Huki, Robina, Mccurdy, Robin Clayfield, and myself, Erin Young. This has been a really rich conversation after a really rich weekend. So thank you so much for bringing everything you brought.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for holding it.
Thank you all
Thank you all so very much.
In particular, thank you to you, Robin, for being so flexible and adaptable and rolling with these situations. And I'm so glad that we were able to bring your voice into the conversation. It's been very beautiful and just deeply grounding. I feel more integrated in my body after listening to each of you bring your pieces of wisdom about how we can remember our own humanity and to really think and feel very deeply about how we can live connected, respectful lives in that way. So thank you for this piece. It's something that is as old as we are, and yet somehow we've forgotten and we are remembering now. So thank you for really being incredible weavers of this and bringing this back into people's sphere and reminding them how to be themselves.
So well spoken, Genevieve. Thank you. And I just really wanted to give the opportunity for Matiu, for you to come back and to speak beyond the prayer and to come into this social realm that you sit so well with, and to really see Erin shining as a result of so much encouragement from Robina and also from Robin Clayfield, and see this evolution of life and intergeneration and culture together. This is what we need, and we're showing up for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, team.
Bless. Thank you.
Well, we hope to have all of you back. Thank you for being in the world and for doing the work that you do. We appreciate you so much. And we'll see you later. All right.
Bye.
Bye, Robina. I love you so much.
We'll connect some more.
We will soon.
All right. Well, that brought me into the body and my whole heart. And thank you all again for being patient during these conversations that we've been having and whatnot. But we really appreciate your patience. And I'm again so glad that Robin was able to speak, even if it was a little bit garbled, because she has such a deep presence that she brings with her. If you'd like to find more of Erin's work, you can find her at erinyoung.net. And also make sure to check out Potent Edge Coaching. That's her new one-on-one service to help activate humans with balance, creativity, and collaboration. For more of Robin's work, you can find her at dynamicgroups.com.au, and also on her Patreon, which will help the production of her next book, which is called Dynamic Teaching and Facilitation. Her Patreon is patreon.com/Robin Clayfield. For more of Machi's work, you can find him at rainbowwarrior.nz, and be sure to check out his culture course on his website.
Yes.
Go to earthcare-education.org and also localizingfood.com. And just to note that localizing is spelled with an S. And she also has a book in progress called Food Sovereignty Facilitator's Manual. Wow. So incredible to see these people up on the screen and sharing what their hearts are. And I highly recommend to all of you that you seek out more of their work and learn from them. They also offered inspirations of theirs that have helped them on their journey, and you can find those on our website for further learning. And so we come to this, again, this moment where we just want to touch base on this space that we're in, and we're so filled with this inspiration, education, connectivity, and that this is so possible because of all of you coming together, contributing in the form of tickets, in the form of energy, in the form of listening and presence in your heart, in the form of the brilliant wisdom and knowledge that's being shared with our speakers. And thank you to everyone. This really feels like a council across many countries. Maybe one day we can be blessed enough to truly call it global, but in the meantime, we can say that there are people across many, many time zones who come together for this, and this is how we move forward. So we hope and we intend to continue facilitating spaces like this, and that is very possible through your contributions of energy, time, financial support. All of that is very, very helpful. And so thank you for your support again. Also, for those of you who donated more than the $25, thank you so much for helping us in this very important work of making this accessible to everyone, because this really, we're remembering that we are a global community within the biospheric community. And so everybody is invited. And so thank you for making it possible for even more people to be here. If anyone would like to make a larger contribution or offer a grant of sorts, this helps us to further all educational programs of the McKenna Academy, as well as cultural preservation and knowledge preservation. You can email us at collaborate@mckenna.academy. So thank you so much.